The 17th of March is St. Patrick's Day, a day associated with Irishness in general, and a day generally when things are turned green that shouldn't be green. But St. Patrick was one of Ireland's 3 patron saints. He is credited with being the man who brought Christianity to Ireland, and although he is said to have travelled all around the island, he is mainly associated with the counties of Down and Armagh, and specifically with the town of Downpatrick, which I visited ahead of today.
Well, today I am in Saul, which is just outside of Downpatrick, and behind me is Saul Church, originally dating from about 1933. But what's very special about this with regards to St. Patrick is this is where he is said to have died. He is meant to have built a church and a monastery here on this site in Downpatrick over 1,500 years ago. And he is said to have spent his last days here. This is where he died, and then of course is buried in Downpatrick on the Hill of Down. So this is Saul Church just outside of Downpatrick, and this is said to be where St. Patrick spent his last years. He is said to have started a church here, and that this is where he died. So the church itself has gone through many different versions. It is said that he built a church here. It later became a monastery, and there are still some signs of the monastery here today. So actually we've still got, there's a piece of wall just behind me here. There's this bit of wall here, and this was built around 1130. You can see it's very, very thick, so you can tell that it's Norman. And you can see that this is the outer wall. This would have been the inside of it here, because you can see those little holes where the beams would have been. And as well, you can see there are a few graves inside this, and that comes from the time of the penal laws, because at this time people were not allowed to celebrate the Catholic faith, but people still wanted to be buried on what they considered consecrated ground, and so they would have buried their dead inside the walls of old monasteries. So there is quite a substantial graveyard around here. Also behind me you can see this little small rectangular building, and that is also part of the original monastery. The building that is here today dates from the 1930s. And it is quite an old medieval sort of style of a building, but there has been somewhere here on this site for all of that time. And whether you really have any sort of religious belief, it's quite a spiritual thing to just know that our ancestors have worshipped 1,500 years ago, right back from St. Patrick's time. So that's really quite a spiritual thing right here in kind of the middle of nowhere. It's very, very peaceful, and it's really quite nice place to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. So we're here at the top of the Hill of Down, standing right beside the grave of St. Patrick. So legend has it that this is where St. Patrick was brought after he died in Saul. He was brought here and buried. The rest of the tradition says that it is also the grave of Ireland's other 2 patron saints, St. Bridget and St. Columkill, said to have been brought here by John de Courcy in the 12th century and buried together with St. Patrick on this spot. So that's why there's some St. Bridget's crosses here, obviously left on St. Bridget's Day. The church behind me is actually a Norman church. It was built in 1180. There has been a church on this site going back around the time when St. Patrick died. But this particular one is from 1180 and was used right up until the dissolution of the monasteries, when it fell into disrepair, but was repaired again in the 20th century. Happy St. Patrick's Day!